All right, let's dive into one of the all-time classics, Charles Dickens's Great Expectations. Now, this is a story that asks a huge question, one that, we still deal with all the time. What does it really mean to be a good person, especially when the world is so obsessed with money and status?
And Dickens doesn't waste any time. He drops us right into the thick of it. Seriously, imagine you're a little kid, all alone in a creepy, misty graveyard. Out of nowhere, this huge, terrifying figure grabs you, flips you upside down, and threatens your life. Talk about an opening scene. This is how we meet our hero, Pip.
Okay, so who is this kid? Well, his name is Pip. He's an orphan, and he's having a pretty rough time of it out on the marshes in England. He's being raised by his really harsh older sister and her husband, who happens to be the local blacksmith. So this scary guy in the graveyard, he's an escaped convict, and he basically forces Pip into a choice. Bring me some food and a file to get these chains off, or else. And this is Pip's first big moral test. He's absolutely terrified, but he also feels a little bit of pity. So he does it. He steals the stuff. And that one act, born out of fear and maybe a little kindness, is going to change his entire life. Just when Pip thinks his life is all mapped out, becoming a blacksmith like his kind brother-in-law Joe, he gets this really weird invitation. He's been summoned to Satis House, this massive, decaying mansion owned by the town's richest and strangest woman, to go play. And this is really the heart of the whole story. Pip is suddenly stuck between two completely different worlds. On one hand, you have the forge. It's warm, it's honest, it's where he's loved by Joe, but it's also, common. And then there's Satis House. It's cold, creepy, and full of secrets, but it represents wealth and a chance to be uncommon, and Pip is totally fascinated by it. And inside this house, it's like a time capsule of heartbreak. The owner, Miss Havisham, is still wearing the wedding dress she had on decades ago when she was left at the altar. All the clocks are stopped at that exact moment. And she has an adopted daughter, the beautiful but very cruel Estella. And Miss Havisham's whole mission in life? She's training Estella to get revenge on all men by breaking their hearts. This is a total game changer for Pip. Estella looks at him with complete disgust, calls him a common working boy. And for the very first time in his life, Pip feels ashamed. He's ashamed of his life, his family, his future. And right then and there, he becomes completely obsessed with one thing, becoming a gentleman, someone uncommon enough for Estella. So years go by. Pip is now working as Joe's apprentice, pretty much resigned to his fate. Those dreams of a different life have all but disappeared. And then, a lawyer from London shows up, and he's got news that is going to change everything.
Out of the blue, Pip learns he has a secret benefactor who's giving him a massive fortune. He's going to be sent to London to become a proper gentleman. Pip immediately thinks it's got to be Miss Havisham. This is her plan to make me worthy of Estella. He can't pack his bags fast enough to leave his old, common life behind.
Well, be careful what you wish for, right? In London, Pip gets everything he thought he wanted. The fancy clothes, the education, the money. But the change in him is pretty ugly. He becomes a total snob, racks up a ton of debt, and worst of all, he becomes deeply ashamed of the one person who ever showed him unconditional love. Joe, the man who was basically his father. Oh, this part is just gut-wrenching. Joe comes to visit Pip in London, and Pip is so embarrassed by Joe's simple country manners. Joe picks up on it, and with this quiet dignity, he basically says, "I don't belong here," and leaves. Pip has finally become a gentleman, but he's completely lost himself along the way. Okay, so fast forward a bit. Pip is 23, living the high life. He's sure Miss Havisham is behind his good fortune, and he's just waiting for the day he can marry Estella. He thinks he has it all figured out. But then, on a dark and stormy night, a visitor shows up, and Pip's entire world is about to be blown to pieces. So, all this time, Pip has been building his life on this one big assumption. He's convinced his money came from a wealthy, eccentric lady as part of some romantic destiny. But the real answer? It's way, way more shocking. It's a ghost from his past. You're not going to believe this. The visitor is Abel Magwitch, the convict, from the graveyard all those years ago. Turns out he was shipped to Australia, made a fortune, and has risked his life coming back to England just to see the gentleman that he created with his money. All of it, the clothes, the status, everything. It didn't come from a mansion. It came from a criminal.
Pip's world just implodes. His entire identity as a gentleman is a complete lie, funded by someone from the lowest rung of society. His dream of being with Estella? Gone. And to make it a million times worse, Magwitch is in the country illegally. If he gets caught, he'll be hanged. And suddenly Pip feels responsible for this man's life. This is rock bottom for Pip. He's lost everything he ever thought he wanted. But this is also where he's finally forced to figure out what actually matters. The book swings right back to that central question: what makes a gentleman? But this time, Pip's about to learn the real answer. At first, Pip is totally disgusted by Magwitch. I mean, can you blame him? But then he starts to listen to the man's story, a life of incredible hardship. And that disgust slowly turns into compassion and then into a fierce, protective loyalty. Pip completely abandons his snobby life and throws everything into trying to save Magwitch. He doesn't succeed, but in that failure, he finally finds his own humanity. And here it is, the ultimate lesson of the whole book. Pip finally gets it. Being a true gentleman has absolutely nothing to do with money or fancy accents or social status. The real gentleman in this story was never Pip in his London apartment. It was always Joe, the simple blacksmith, a man of loyalty, kindness, and a good heart. So why does this story, written so long ago, still matter? Well, Dickens was taking a hard look at the rigid class system of his day. This idea that your bank account defined your worth as a human being. And let's be honest, that pressure hasn't exactly gone away, has it? Great Expectations is a powerful reminder that our real value comes from our character and how we treat people, especially the ones who've loved us all along. So that kind of leaves us with a question for ourselves. What are your great expectations? Are your ambitions making you a better, more loyal, more compassionate person? Or are they just pushing you towards some shallow idea of success? And maybe most important of all, take a second to think about who the Joes are in your own life. The people whose value isn't in what they have, but in who they are.